Which questions we're doing every answer? Last time I think I did 2, 4, 6,
Yeah,
8.
we could do that though. Yeah, we'll do it just like that.
So yeah, I'll do 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10.
Sounds good.
So you
So to start off, just a basic introduction again for the recording.
Okay, all right.
Did you serve in a war? If so, which one?
Yes. Okay, sure. It was Vietnam. Uh, my service dates were in Vietnam were April '69 to April of '70. I was commissioned second lieutenant military intelligence at graduation in May of '68. Me and 36 other individuals had joined and volunteered for the Army ROTC program. And that was again in College, Erie, Pennsylvania. And there was about 500 seniors, and only 36 of us were in that program. Of course, that was right in the middle of the war. I mean, some of us stepped up, others avoided. My decision to go into the Army ROTC was made in April of '66. That's when I had to make the final decision to go in. That was the cutoff date. I was 19 at the time. I'm not sure what your ages are, but I was 19. I was in my second semester sophomore year with the war raging on. Okay. The last question down here talks about, what would you like to tell, a younger generation? And I made some comments there of, why did I sign on the dotted line? At that time in April '66, my best friend and I made that decision. And there'll be a little more about my best friend. We made that decision at that time. I really, what does it mean being a vet? What does it mean being a veteran mean to you? I kind of really didn't. I kind of answered that question by answering the other questions, and maybe my opening to show you what I was involved with and what I did. You're not going to find too many people like me. It's a very limited group of people. Okay. So in my junior year, I was in the Army ROTC program, and I think at the end of our junior year, we had to decide what branch of the military service we wanted to go into. I was somewhat interested in ordnance, which was weapons, and under ordnance was also bomb disposal. That's unit was within the ordnance department. And believe it or not, hey, look, when you're 2021, you have a whole different outlook on things, because if you became a bomb disposal officer, that was like about another $160 a month in 1969. But I was interested in weapons and stuff, so ordnance. However, I put down military intelligence thinking that the chances were slim to none to get that job. And I figured, they'll give me my second choice. I did have an interest in intelligence work and what may be done there, but as I found out when I got called over to the ROTC building, Lieutenant, you've been chosen for the intelligence program, and I kind of go, mouth opens, no words. Oh, I said, really? Yeah. Okay. Next thing you know, in a week or two, military Army counterintelligence agents show up to talk to me. And they inform me that they're going to do, am I being online or in track of what you want to hear? Am I, is
You'll
it,
be
is
on
this,
a website,
is this
Yeah,
what you're,
we're gonna make a website.
and it'll be on there.
oh, okay. All right. So anyways, next thing they go, they interview me briefly. They said, we'll be working on a background check of you. And, they asked me for some basic information and stuff. Now, look, I'm a senior in college. I went to grade school, high school. I mean, there's not much that a 20 or 21-year-old can do when you're school, and school.
Right.
So, in I don't know, about a month or 2 months, they come back with a dossier on me. Something. They went back to where my grade school was located. And in the notes, I can remember reading, applicant went to St. Alphonsus grade school. However, the building no longer stands. So they went to that point. They contacted all my neighbors, contacted teachers. I mean, everything. And as they read each page, I then had to initial each page that this information was the correct and accurate. They did have one criticism of me or observation. They said, we see that you're a member of the Committee for Free China. You're a member of the school representative for the Young Americans for Freedom. I was involved in the Model United Nations and a number of political things. They said, Lieutenant, are you a joiner? It's because you've joined a number of organizations. Well, I said, these are organizations which are very pro-American, looking to get out the word on freedom. I said, he says, are you aware that sometimes these organizations are not necessarily that, but maybe uh, covers for actually communist organizations to get people like you involved and then start to twist and turn you? I said, oh, okay. I said, Young Americans for Freedom is a pretty solid organization. I said, I don't think there's any Reds in that organization. Maybe something like the Student Committee for a Free China. Who knows? But anyways, it wasn't enough to deny me a commission in military intelligence. We graduated, and we were told, now just have to wait for your orders to where you're going to go and whatever. Graduated at the end of May. August, my first orders show up, and the orders send me to the infantry school at Fort Benning, Georgia. It's no longer called Fort Benning, but that's where I actually went, Fort Benning. I read that, and that was it. Infantry school, and then to Vietnam. I says, oh boy, just what the Army does. You've been selected for Army intelligence. You've been interviewed for that. You've been checked on your background. Now they're sending you there as an infantry officer. I mean, but that's the given. That could happen. So I did not tell my mother or father that. I just said, these are orders, and I'll be going into training. And I just left it at that. About 2 weeks later, I get a letter that said additional orders will follow. Okay, I'm going to infantry school. I'm going to Vietnam. What's happening? In a couple of weeks, I get new orders, which again send me to the infantry school, but then on top of that, send me to the intelligence school for training. So now it's infantry school and the intelligence school. So I said, okay, all right, but why are they sending an intelligence officer for infantry training? Okay. I can't forget the date I went on active duty because it was Thanksgiving week, 1968. So, as a sidelight, I cannot remember Thanksgiving Day of that week because right to school and right into training. And I don't even think Thanksgiving Day was a consideration at that time. I sure as heck can't remember it. Finish up infantry training. I have my orders. And oh, by the way, I should mention that probably about 80% of the company being trained as infantry officers, we were all intelligence officers. So we were kind of talking among ourselves, why are we here? What's the story? Like in that particular movie, what's the story, Richie? And so anyways, we're up to, all of us land up at the intelligence school, which was up in Maryland at that time. That post no longer exists. The intelligence school is in Fort Huachuca in Arizona now. So we begin to question why some of the officers who were teaching us, training us, why do we have to go to infantry school? They says, you'll find out. Okay, that means shut up. So we finish up the intelligence training. We have our orders for Vietnam, and the orders for Vietnam just says assigned to Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, MACV. And only one of us in the group was assigned to United States Army, Vietnam. And that was the son of Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., the individual who played the FBI officer on the television program, the FBI. So he goes to USARV. The rest of us went to McAfee. So we get to Vietnam, and we're told as a group, because literally from infantry school to intelligence school, and then flying over there, it's like the whole group was like together, practically the whole time, if not all of us. So we're in the conference room, and big map of Vietnam, huge map up on the wall. And alphabetically, they start going through, and the officer in charge, Mr. Smith here, showing the different districts. Eventually got down to Sardone, and they hit, and I see that I'm way down in the Mekong Delta and right near Cambodia. So that far down south near Cambodia, I figured it's probably activity there with these guys coming across the border with supplies and stuff. Because at this point, we still don't know what particular assignments we have. He finally explains and says, you're assigned to a program that was developed by the CIA, and you'll get further details when you get into your district of expectations. So we still don't really know yet what we're doing. We get down into I think I was the only new guy who was assigned. Yeah, I was the only new guy who was assigned to that province. The other guys were still on their tour. And so finally, when I got in there, the major who was in charge, a military intelligence officer, had a one-on-one with him. He explained uh, this, the Army is working with the CIA on the program to essentially destroy the Viet Cong infrastructure, and not so much to go after the soldiers, because if you kill Sergeant Smith or Private Jones, guess what? Another Sergeant Smith, another Jones. But if you land up getting the security chief, or you get a hamlet leader or a village leader, a lot harder to replace. And that was to break the back of the political leadership of the Viet Cong. So, all righty. So I get up to my district, and the individual who was there, who was leaving, briefs me on, what's going on, and you know, who I would be working with, and uh, going out on different operations. When you're in the military, especially in a war zone, if you're assigned something, you do it. Period. Unless you think you're being told to do something that is completely immoral or anything. I never had that problem. Period. So then moved along. Um, you ask in question 6, can you tell us about any special, unique experiences you had? Well, I got to my district sometime in the middle of May or earlier May, and we had an advisor team. I should give you an idea what an advisor team is. There's usually a major or a captain that was in charge. There was one other officer, usually, and that was me, second lieutenant, eventually first lieutenant, and then senior NCOs, sergeants. And every one of our sergeants had a prior tour in Vietnam, so they were all experienced. Uh, had what is called a radio telephone operator, who would handle the communications. Okay, and the major or the captain also had a tour in Vietnam previously. So the only two who really on these teams who didn't have prior tours was the new lieutenant and the radio telephone operator. All the other men on the team, and the team would be 5, 6, 7, never got much more than 7 or 8 men, okay? Never reached double digits. So they were all experienced, okay? Um, this is almost 55 years ago for me, okay? I knew about, all right, I started working with what was called the National Police Field Force, which would be like really upgunned uh, military police, and special police, which handled all the files, dossiers, interrogations, and stuff. And I also was going out on regular operations, regular night ambushes, regular day patrols. So I had this responsibility with with the CIA program and had the other responsibilities just going on regular operations. Okay, so kind of a full plate of things. Okay, about a couple months in, I think it was July. I got new orders down for me. They sent me to another place for additional operations out of my area. Okay, all right. You get the orders, you go. Catch the first helicopter out and go. And that was for about almost a month. I was out of district. The day I get back, I'm met at the helicopter in the province capital, which would be like Albany. Then the sergeant who greets the helicopter goes, "Danny was killed." Danny was our radio telephone operator. I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, Lieutenant, the NVA has come through our area." I said, "What?" I mean, this is, I will just tell you that Danny at that point had 20 days left. 20 days. In a war zone, it doesn't matter, first day, last day. If you're in the field, something can happen any given day. The operation, driving, snipers, whatever. He was, I think he was 20 years old. And I says, "Oh my God."
Do
So,
you remember his last name?
what's that?
Do you remember his last name?
Yeah, his Daniel Dennis. His name was Daniel Dennis.
Got it.
So, isn't it? For me, there's a lot of sidelights that are in my head. I don't know if you guys ever see the movie or hear the movie about Vietnam called Hamburger Hill.
No, I have not.
Okay, that is one of the better Vietnam movies. Okay, it's very realistic. In that movie, there is one of the individuals. Hamburger is it's a very depressing fight. It's a very heart-rendering, just tough movie. But anyways, there's one individual in there who, when they are back resting before their next attack up a damn hill, he's opening up a magazine and he's showing his friends a red car that when I get home, this is what I'm buying. This is what I'm going to get. This, whatever, a red Camaro or a red Super Sport, whatever at the time. Well, guess what? That's exactly what Danny did for me, showing me in a magazine. And when I saw that movie for the first time, I like really stiffened up because for me, that was the Danny character. The character in the movie is killed, and Danny was killed. And he was showing me the red car that he was going to get. He was from southern Indiana. I almost, when we were, because I have family in Indiana, and wanted to go down to southern Indiana and see if I could find his family. But I chickened out. I couldn't do it. Just too emotional. And I don't know how I was going to be met. I mean, it could have been, "I'm so glad," or, "WTF, what are you doing here?" So I chickened out. But when I go down to, if I'm ever in Washington, D.C., I always check his name out on the wall. I mentioned that my friend and I, in April '66, both made that decision to go into the volunteer for the Army ROTC. There's a magazine or a newspaper that we would get called Stars and Stripes, and it talked about the military, what went on in the military, and across the board, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, what everybody was doing. And of course, in wartime, it loaded up with war stories. However, it also had an obituary section. Now, I really never looked at that newspaper. I mean, I would see maybe the front page or something, but I didn't bother with it. I would hear the sergeants talk because the sergeants used to go to the obituary section. Because, the sergeants, these guys were in 10 years, 12 years. Our oldest sergeant was a master sergeant. His first tour of combat was Korea. He was a mortar man in Korea. So this guy was in the Korean War, and I was in the Vietnam War. So he was in two wars. And so the point is, these guys were in the military a lot. They knew a lot of other sergeants. And I would hear them say to one another, Johnny Smith was with the 101st, he's killed at Tay Ninh, or somebody was with the Americal Division and he was, killed up north. And these were guys that they knew, that they had served with or just knew as friends, So this was in I think it was like late August, maybe early September of '69. So one of the sergeants walked over to me and said, "Here, Lieutenant, here's the newspaper." I don't know. Hear them talking about their buddies being killed and everything. Now, look, I don't have the history of some of these sergeants who've been in the military 10, 12, 15 years, or like our senior sergeant, a prior war. So, in fact, I think he handed me the page, if I remember correctly, with the obituary section open, because this is what they were talking about. So I look at it, and it's broken down by rank. Lieutenant, second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, colonel. We even had a couple of generals who were killed over there, okay? I look down, and I look at, because at that point, we're still second lieutenants. I look down, and there it is. Second Lieutenant Kenneth Sismarsky, which was my best friend. And
Take all the time you need.
he was known, I knew him as Kenny. A lot of guys call him Suz, S-U-S, because it's Sismarsky. But for me, it was always Kenny. I had just gotten a letter from him, and he had mentioned that he was, on his way over, and he was assigned as a infantry platoon leader. So he was KIA on his 15th day in Vietnam. 15th day. So like I told you I'd get back to the person who signed with me. You had our communications guy, only 20 days left, The other guy with his whole career or his whole time left, for Vietnam. And what happened was, because I wanted to find out what happened, he was assigned to the first cav. That is the one with the yellow patch with the horse and the line. And there's a bad joke about that. The horse the guys never rode, and the line they never crossed, and the color of their courage. Said bad military jokes. But anyways, he was out with 4 sergeants and himself, reconnoitering the area where his platoon was going to be. They got mortared by the NVA. And 3 of the 4 sergeants were killed, plus Kenny. So you just essentially wiped out the leadership of an American platoon, because usually you had probably, see, and I wasn't with an American unit. You had about 4 like experienced sergeants who would be in charge of a squad, and the platoon leader, like Kenny. And but there's always somebody who move up in a position. But so for me, I call that the alpha and the omega of brutal, of ugly. 15 days in, only 20 days left. And so that's hard. That stuff doesn't go away. It's in your head. It's just like, it's in your head. And, something like this, obviously brings it up. Now, one more thing about that magazine or that newspaper. I saw that, and I turned the newspaper over, closed it, and on the front page is a word that has a very special meaning to me: Woodstock. Pictures of Woodstock. I mean, I just threw the newspaper. I didn't give any emotion, just like the sergeants pretty much were. When they talked about their buddies who were killed, they were like dead calm. I figured, I guess that's the way to be. And so Woodstock has, for me, the word. If I'm on the New York State Thruway and we're coming through Harriman and I say Woodstock, my buddy Kenny just jumps into my mind. And because that's my connection with Woodstock. And I hate it. You talk about, again, special, unique experiences. There's also, I got back from Vietnam right when Kent State was going on, if you know what happened there. National Guard troops in Ohio landed up killing about 5 students at that time. And it became a huge deal. If you're interested, just, Kent State, Vietnam, and you'll probably get a billion hits on that. What was the point? I'm showing my age. Whatever. It was interesting. I'm back from Vietnam. I am out of active military, but I am on active reserve duty for 2 years, which means I can be called up at any time if they wanted to. Although at that time, not like today, they didn't call it. Most of the time, we were not called back. But anyways, I'm looking for a job. I mean, you know, I have a fiance. I think we're going to get married pretty soon. And am I going too long?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Um, so I'm in a work interview in one of these places that, you know, help you find a job, you know. Look, I graduated college. I went into the military. Now I'm out of the military. I'm going to get married pretty soon. And so other than what I know from the military, I'm back in the civilian world. Okay. So I'm being interviewed by the guy who's going to try to help me get a job. So, what's my resume? College, military. Not much there. So he said, I see you're he goes, I see you're a Vietnam veteran. I said, yeah. He said, well, he says, it would be very good of you, or very smart of you, to not say really anything about that or really bring it up while you're being interviewed. Now, if you told me that today, I'd probably jump across the table, slit your throat. Back then, I'm still a young guy, and uh, and I'm aware of the anti-war, what was going on. We talked about it in the military, you know. We thought they're a bunch of jerks or whatever, you know. We didn't have any use for them. But anyways, so he said, just, you know, you have to fill in the time, but do not elaborate. I don't say anything. I just listen. So he's looking at the resume and he goes, I see you went to St. Alphonsus grade school. I said, right. I see you went to St. Joseph's High School. I said, yes. I said, I know now this is going somewhere. I don't know where it's going. He says, and I see you went to Gannon College in Erie, PA. What was Gannon College? I said, it was a small Catholic college. I says, maybe about 2,000 students at most. I said, so he goes, it was a Catholic college. And I said, yes. He said, well, that wasn't too smart of you. He says, you went to a Catholic grade school, you went to a Catholic high school, now you went to a Catholic college. He says, you limited yourself. And I mean, again, I don't know what to say, you know? I don't need to tell you that that was first, last, and no further interviews with that individual. He had a real problem that I went to Catholic schools, and he had a real problem that I was a Vietnam vet. So you talk about unique experience. Is that a unique experience?
Of course.
Yeah. Now, another unique experience, 9/11. I worked 3 blocks on 9/11. I was down there. My company was about 3 blocks away on Broadway, right next to Wall Street. Okay, it was 100 Broadway, right next to you walked out, you walked left, about a quarter of a block, you were right there at Wall Street. I'm there the day that the planes hit, okay? So, although at that point in my career, I'm the vice president of underwriting, I'm still not high enough on that totem pole to be involved in the meeting with the senior vice presidents, the CFO, the CEO, the executive vice presidents. Okay, who are going to make the decision? Do we stay or do we go? So I'm looking up. In fact, I'm standing at my doorway at my office, and I see my boss, who is a senior VP, walking up, and he said, "We made a decision, and we're staying." I look at him and I say, we can't stay. Get the hell out of here. And I go to him and I use a military term. I say, we are in the kill zone. Here's our office. Here's Wall Street. If anything's going to happen, if anything big is still going to happen, Wall Street could easily be a target, right? They got the World Trade Center, they got the Pentagon, and they were coming back for the Capitol with the Shanksville crash. I said, no. He said, the decision's made. We got to stay. Now, I have 9 people reporting to me. So I can't leave. No way do I leave. Even if I disagreed with whatever. And oh, by the way, he goes to me, what are you talking about, kill zone? That's because that's a military term. That's if you get ambushed and you're getting shot up, you're in a kill zone. And the only way that you get out of a kill zone is that you have to move out on the ambush. Probably more people are going to get killed. But if you stay in the kill zone, you're all going to get killed. That was my point, you know. So, anyways, um, sorry, I lose my track sometimes. I'm sorry. So okay, so we. Like I said, I got 9 people reporting to me, so I can't leave. If I leave, I got to take 9 people with me, my people. But then, if I leave with my 9 people, I got to walk in front of customer service, salespeople, who are on our floor. I can't leave. So it's interesting because I heard stories about other Vietnam vets who were in the World Trade Center who took their people out and said, screw you, Building 2. After Building 1 was hit, Building 2 said, screw you, we're leaving. And they took their people out. At least 2 stories of that nature that I've seen in the programs. Otherwise, I just felt that I would cause too much problem. Plus, on top of it, I was the fire warden. The story with that is, in a number of places that I worked, every time I went in, I would always look at the list of who the fire wardens were, who the assistants were, who were the people that check, bathrooms, conference rooms, or, whatever, study rooms, cafeterias, or whatever, when you had to empty out. It's the kind of person I am. It's just my background to know what is going on. Just like I never sit in the middle seat of a train. I don't sit against the window. I will sit in an aisle seat. If I can't sit in an aisle seat, guess what? I stand. So most of the times going into New York City out of Harrison, I stood. Unless I got the first expresses out of Harrison. So anyways, so we stayed. However, I noticed that a lot of the women, insurance companies just really have a lot of women employees, started gathering outside my door because they knew I was the fire warden or floor warden or whatever the hell the title was. So I got up with them and I told them, look, ladies, do me a favor, get back to your desks, close your systems, bring all your systems down. Don't leave any systems open. Close up. I said, get out of your heels, put your sneakers on, because a lot of women would wear sneakers to work and not their heels. You saw it on the train all the time. I says, and let's get ready to move at the drop of a hat if something happens. I'm on the phone at 10 o'clock. My daughter is calling me from a hospital that she worked with at in White Plains, the psych hospital. Building 2 comes down. When Building 2 came down, our building shook. from the rumble and the underground movement. So for that, what now seems like an eternity, but for those couple of seconds, I'm sitting there waiting for the building to come down on me. Just at that point, the building management gets on the horn on all floors and says, evacuate now, evacuate now. It just kept saying, evacuate now. Well, we had to evacuate. Guess what? Our building filled with smoke and dust. And our escape route was filled with smoke and dust. So me and my assistants, we got everybody heading toward to the stairs. We got them as many wet cloths and wet paper towels as we could for their face to go down. We had men to take care of a couple of women who were pregnant to stay right with them until they got down the stairs, because you couldn't see down the stairs. It was pitch black. Fortunately, all the women who were around me, they were ready to move, because I said, just be ready to move on a dime. And the dime came when Building 2 collapsed. I'm on the phone with my daughter. The building collapses. We get the screaming on the system to evacuate now. And I tell my daughter, I got to go. Just slam the phone down, take off. 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, sometimes, I don't know what made my daughter bring this up. She says, she says, there was a lot of screaming on your phone. I said, what? Screaming? He says, I heard all the women screaming. Guess what? I have absolutely no recognition of that. I guess my mind went in, I got a job to do, got to do the job, got to take care of business, and I'm sure that's just my background, my military training, and the things I had to do in the past. And but no, she goes, Dad, they were screaming. Well, of course they were screaming. The damn building was shaking. We were full of smoke and dust. We could hardly see. But we all got out safely. Although when you see those pictures on TV of those people walking with all the dust, that was all of us. Because when we got downstairs, it was even worse than inside. So that, again, a unique experience with my mind going into a military mind. By the way, I will tell you, and this, all right, this can be recorded and this can be said. I have a service disability for PTSD and anger. I am on medication for it. I've been taking it now for quite a while, and I do see therapists at the VA. This is the outside of family, and not even all family, and outside of a couple of very, very close friends who are primarily other veterans. This is not something I've ever really discussed openly. But it's all part of the system. This individual here who wrote this book, The Challenges of PTSD from His Physical and Psychological Combat Wounds. So if he can admit it, and he writes a book and puts it on a book, okay. In fact, I'm a member of Vietnam Veterans of America, and we all kind of joke among ourselves who isn't on medication. And uh, see, as an advisor working with Vietnamese, you lived with the Vietnamese. I mean, you had your own living area, but you were with Vietnamese in your operations. Many times you ate with them. Okay, in fact, the um, the intelligence squad of the local Vietnamese company who I would go out with, his wife would make the food for him when we went out on operation, and would then also make the food for me. I knew him very well, knew his kids. These are people who we were ate with, the women who I saw cry when their husbands were killed and their children were killed, or when the children saw the women cry and the kids cry when they saw their fathers or their brothers or their uncles or the men killed. It's a whole different experience than the men whom who I know in the Vietnam Veterans of America who were with American units, who for them the Vietnamese were just the people there, and who pretty much they considered all the enemy. And that was the reality. Because I would ask some of the guys, did you ever talk to, see? Oh, we never talked to anybody. We would just see them. That's all. We would just see them. So that's my experience. It was the same war. It was called the Vietnam War, but a totally different experience because I did everything with Vietnamese. uh, it, something else that you might, I can't get too specific. What I will tell you is a lot of Vietnam vets, and this is knowing from talking with them, and a lot of us did not join organizations like I'm a member of now, the VFW, American Legion, which are the two biggest, okay? And the reasons a lot of us, or really a lot of us, did not join is that the attitude of the leadership of that group and the men within that group, which were primarily World War II guys, and this is not casting any aspersions on World War II guys, but there were some in there who said, you guys weren't in a real war. 58,000 guys' name on the wall. We weren't in a real war. How'd they die? Some possibly by accident. Oh, to me personally, and I can only say that I was asked, did you bring any ears home? What? Did you bring any ears home? They want to know if I cut off ears and brought ears. Now, maybe some Americans did that in the American units, but obviously people who are asking me didn't understand that I was with Vietnamese. They didn't, the Vietnamese did not cut ears off, and if an American cut the ears off, they'd probably be shot on the next operation. I mean, so this is what we met. You weren't in a real war. that was the big one. You weren't in a real war. Real war is an oxymoron. War is war. So I didn't join the VFW till Jesus, maybe 3-4 years ago, in my 70s. The American Legion I maybe joined a little bit earlier, but I didn't even join, what do you say, the actual post. I joined sort of like the uh, what would they call it? The home office group, the guys who joined but did not want to be involved with a particular post, and and of course I'm with the Vietnam Veterans of America, but then we're all Vietnam vets, so they talk about us. We can talk among ourselves. You read this, right?
Yes.
I have in the Vietnam Veterans for America. There's everybody. There's Marines, Air Force, Army, Navy. I've got a couple of my friends were Seabees in the Navy, and those are construction guys, but they're also fighters. Okay, so one of them, one of my friends asked me, he said, "Well, what'd you do over there?" Well, I said I was an advisor. I said I worked with the Vietnamese. He said, "Well, what did you do?" Obviously, poking for some more information. And what the hell's an advisor? What'd you do? I said, well, my primary job was to I says go after the Viet Cong infrastructure. I said it's called it was called the Phoenix Program. He kind of looked at me and I go, oh shit. He says, we got to know about you guys. I says, you got to know about us guys? What are you talking about? He said, when I was in Vietnam, and he says, and we were putting buildings up and doing landing strips and anything that could be built by the Americans. He says, one day I asked, those Army guys up there, who are they? He says, my buddy goes, shook his head, said, those are dangerous men. Kind of sticks. Those are dangerous men. He says, they go after special people. We really upset somebody. So anyways, so every time he sees me now, well, here comes the dangerous man. I said, look, I'm a grandfather of 3. Get the shit out of here with this dangerous stuff. 55 years ago. And yeah, I even have a note here. Did you know that Congress never declared war in North Vietnam?
Really?
Congress never declared war in Vietnam on North Vietnam. I don't want to get into politics. Question number 10, I'll answer because I think it's important. But what gave the authority to President Johnson to literally send over at one point about 550,000 men? Now, of course, not everybody's in combat because you got doctors and nurses and supply and food and, all this other stuff, graves, registration. But anyways, what gave him the authority, and if you want to make a note to look it up, it's called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. And the Gulf of Tonkin, I think it's Tonkin. Uh, that was based on apparent North Vietnamese patrol boats, torpedo boats, more or less, firing on American destroyers. And from that Gulf of Tonkin revolution landed up the whole Vietnam War of 58,000 killed, guys committing suicide afterwards. You want to check into something, see how many Vietnam vets are killing themselves to this day. I have a lot of.
Excuse me, sir. Thank you for your service.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Walt Ron, Division 1969, 11 Bravo.
You're in the Mekong Delta, right?
That's
The
right.
top Mekong. I was in the Mekong Delta all the way down, which would be like the backwoods of Kentucky or Tennessee, with an advisor team.
Oh, what year was that?
Pardon me.
What year was that?
April '69 to April of '70.
Did I meet you in honor?
Well, I don't think so.
You came to my unit and asked me for 60mm mortar rounds.
I never got that far
Okay.
north. I just I lived down there in a swamp.
Well, what do you think we lived in?
Yeah. In fact, when I was over there in July, they pulled the first brigade out of one of the brigades from the 9th, right? Nixon pulled them out.
Yes, I was in the 3rd Brigade. They did pull one out. The guys were the Riverines, and they gave us a choice. If you want to go to Hawaii, you got to extend for another year. And I said, screw you. Gentlemen, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. These
Actually-
young men are interviewing veterans. In fact, they had the opportunity to interview a 96, 97-year-old World War II destroyer vet.
99, actually.
And
Wow.
he's a member of the VFW in Harrison.
Sorry.
I'm
Okay. Just lift your left foot up there. There you go.
and they are doing they're doing a wonderful job, these young men. And
I had been interviewed for this about 3 or 4 years ago. It was on the library website. I don't know whatever happened to it. If it's still there. But
locally or someplace else?
here, right here.
Right here. Oh.
There was a young man who was interested in going to West Point. I tried to talk him out of it.
I'm trying to
Join the Air Force.
Try-
But I'll tell you one interesting story was that I was drafted against my will. I had no belief in this nonsense.
Would you like to have a seat?
Pardon?
Would you like to have a seat?
No, thank you. I might not be able to get up.
Right.
No, thankfully I'm 77. I don't have arthritis. I work out every day and all that stuff.
I'm 77. Well, yeah, look, I mean, this was 60.
Well, I actually personally replaced Donald Trump in the draft. Donald Trump had gotten 4, 5, 6 deferments, and then he was out of deferments. And in the fall of '68, his dad, who was a real estate guy in Brooklyn, was renting an office to a podiatrist. He told the podiatrist, "I'll take care of your rent. You give my son Donald an exception for bone spurs or make something up."
Whatever.
That's how Donald Trump got out of the draft. And you know what he said about the rest of us? They're suckers. I would go to that.
Now, it's different. I volunteered through Army ROTC, and my family, in fact, if not all the men except for my father, who was a coal miner, and that had its own craziness because I'm from Western Pennsylvania. I'm from the Pittsburgh area.
What does that hat mean?
Well, born and raised there.
No, there's steel factories in Western Pennsylvania.
Guess what? There's no steel factories left in Pittsburgh. That's.
But I was drafted in '68. They wanted us there for TET '69. You guys read about TET '68?
Yeah, there was TET '69.
TET '68 was when the turning point for the American people was had. Westmoreland, the general in charge of the army over there, and the whole exercise was telling the Americans just before that, we see light at the end of the tunnel. This war is going to be over. We wiped out the VC, Viet Cong, all this other stuff. And then in February '68, there's a massive offensive by the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army, hundreds of thousands of them. They invaded every city. They even came into Saigon, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
how
yeah,
they
yeah,
came into
yeah,
Saigon,
yeah, yeah.
and a group of VC commandos took over the American embassy.
Yep, yep.
You can look at it, and you can see the films on it on YouTube. They took over the American embassy, and there were CIA guys and other guys outside trying to fire at them and get them out of there. So you know that was a humiliation for the United States, and the fact is, during the rest of that campaign, Tet '68, we practically wiped out the Viet Cong. That was the
Yeah, yeah. That was the upshot. Yeah,
communist incendiaries, but but then the North Vietnamese army just came piling down. They could replace people faster than we can kill them.
yeah. That's
And
it.
that's what they wanted. So I was drafted 2 months basic in October, 2 months basic training, 2 months Fort Polk, Louisiana for light weapons infantry. I was in Vietnam less than 5 months.
After
I
after
was
being,
a rifleman in the 9th Infantry Division, walking around in the rigs. Helicopter assaults. I have an air medal.
you know what I joke about, in the dry season, the water was up to your knees. In the wet season, the water was up to your hips.
I know. We used to go out. They used to drop us in the rice paddies in the mud, and basically there'd be a rice paddy, and then there's wood lines all around it, and basically they drop you off in the middle, and then they want you to assault that wood line. So 60 guys get on line, right, with either M16s or M60 machine guns, whatever, and you would walk towards that wood line, giving them the first shot. We were bait.
Yeah, you were bait. Yeah, yeah. I I was on an operation one time, and I was with the Vietnamese. Okay, my my whole tour
Advisor.
was an advisor. I was a Phoenix advisor. You guys didn't know about
I
us.
know about. I've read about it after. I read a lot about the history afterwards. I know what you guys were doing.
Okay.
Jeez, you bloodthirsty guy. You carry a bayonet, Steve.
See what I mean? Here is giving you a perfect example. I was just telling these two young men. I have a friend. I'm a member of VVA 49, and
Where's that?
that's we meet up in Armonk every first Thursday of the month.
Yeah, I'm a member of that.
You remember that?
I just never go to the meetings.
Oh yeah, I got to know one of the guys. You know, I'm talking, and sometimes I just goddamn forget.
We
You
know
know.
about it. My wife has got early onset dementia.
So, anyways, well, he was a Navy Seabee. Okay, and they were doing construction work, and
They ate well.
what's it? Yeah, they ate well. Navy
No, that's right.
always
The
eats well.
Seabees, a few times they came in contact with them.
We used to get
real bread and real milk.
we used to get food from because our district bordered the South China Sea, so there we had Navy destroyers were off, and they used to bring in food to us. We used to sometimes get food from them. But anyways, he asked he. Yeah, I ate a.
You should make me the case of sea rations. See how they.
We should get the ones that they threw away from Okinawa.
Hey, listen, that's not. I've read about that. That they actually had Korean War and World War II leftover sea rations, the canned foods. They're disgusting, and they were still using that in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, yeah. No. Some of
Yes.
that, yes. And it's like they didn't have a best buy date on them. But anyways, the the CB asked one of his buddies, "Who are those army guys up there that are up there?" Because my CB buddy was asking me what I did, and I just said I was an advisor, and I left it go at that. But he poked for more information, and then when I told him, "Look," I said I was a Phoenix advisor, and then he tells me that when he asked about the Army guys up there, they turned out to be Phoenix operatives, and he goes, "Those are dangerous men."
Hey, listen, I gotta go. I'm sorry to hold you up, guys. It's very fascinating to meet a guy like this.
Yes,
If you
Good luck to you both.
Would you like to have your interview done?
Again?
If you'd like
yeah.
Does it help you?
to. Absolutely.
It was it. He's 11 Bravo, which means he's
Light weapons infantry.
You
I
could,
was a
put,
guy that went on those helicopter assaults and things like that.
you could put your name and number down right here.
I think they did it here for me.
we were
Are
in
you
this.
from Harrison?
Yeah, I'm from Harrison. I'm 5-minute walk from here.
Yeah, I'm about 7 minutes.
So,
I live on Bente Drive. You know where that is?
oh,
Yeah.
that's Bente Drive is Mike Bonick.
Yeah, he's up the street from me.
Yeah, he's yeah.
Was he a mechanic in Vietnam?
No, he was with the Fifth
I know he's with
Infantry.
the Air Cav,
Fifth.
but
Yeah, but no, he was light weapons, I believe. Yeah. He, no, he was.
let me see his name, please. No, you're.
Jim Sardone.
Oh, where's it? Jim.
Oh, yeah, right here. Jim Sardone.
Jim Sardone. I'll give you a call. Well, I know you probably don't drink beer, right?
I drink beer. I'm not much of a drinker, but I do drink beer.
Yeah, it's Jim Sardone.
Are we boring the hell out of you?
No, it's fine.
Oh, guys.
Okay. Jim. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I saw the hat and everything. I thought, well, this guy's a real jerk. But then now
he volunteered for Vietnam. He's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. This guy's a loser at both ends.
Okay, did I have anything with me? No. Okay.
Why don't you get right here?
I did have a film.
Give me your. Oh, what the hell did I write there? Give me your name and number, and because any friend of Mike Bonick is a friend of mine. Mike is.
You play golf?
You would have to interview him in a sound-proof room. F.
Wait, who are you asking if
Pardon?
about golf?
I was asking him, does he play golf? Why, do you?
He's a
Yeah,
big
I
golfer
do.
right here.
You're a what?
He's a big time golfer right
Yeah,
here.
Where do
Oh.
you golf?
Saxon Boys.
Oh, yeah. Well, I usually go to Maplemore, but I want to get into it. Now Harrison has this
Meadows,
country
yeah.
club over here.
Meadows.
Play there?
I've played there like once. I don't go too much.
That is, I was out on an operation one time, and I would go out with a lot of different individuals, and we're moving, and I see in the distance this like woods, or trees and stuff. And I told the leader, I said, why don't you have some guys sweep this area, make sure we don't get ambushed, that there's something isn't in there, Guy goes, no, VC. How the fuck do you know? No. So we're walking along the berm right near a canal. Me, if I'm hearing any kind of metal click, I'm going straight into the canal. Fortunately, there wasn't anybody there, but that's how you get killed, because you don't do what you're supposed to do. Stop your unit, send a sweep through just to make sure, and then you move the unit. And sometimes the Americans wouldn't do that either, and it'll end up being on the obituary page. But anyways, let me. You have that last question. What tell the younger generation about being a veteran? Well, I do talk to my grandson. They both are seniors. Just as a side note, he's track and flag football. He says, I don't want no big guys crushing me on the field, he goes. The thing was that track coach went to the flag football coach and said, "We got somebody here who can really run." So now he's on. He's doing both sports. But anyways, and he sent some videos when he's running. It's like, whoa, is he fast? But anyways, his twin sister probably is going to IU in Indiana University. He's probably going to Ball State. Yeah, but we'll see. Okay. Tell the younger generation, well, what they say is, well, why did you serve? Why did you sign up? Why did you volunteer? Why, you have to put the politics aside. That's a whole separate discussion about Vietnam, okay? I served 2 reasons. My country needed me. My country needed me. And I had to serve my country. And and that's totally separate from the politics of the war, which, like he said, he complained about the politics. So do I, but that's a separate conversation. And the men in my family served. They all volunteered after Pearl Harbor. I had an uncle in Guadalcanal with the First Marine Division. I had another one who was on Air Force airplanes that tracked down German and Japanese submarines. I had another one who was in the Army in the Pacific. The Marines have such good propaganda that everybody thinks there was no Army in the Pacific. Yes, there was plenty of Army in the Pacific. And landing on the shores just like the Marines. But the Marines will have you believe only they did that. I tease my Marine friends all the time. And then I had an uncle whose job was Army intelligence, who tracked down SS guys in Germany after the war. So he had an interesting job. They all had interesting jobs. I mean, fighting on Guadalcanal was about as ugly as possible. I will, as you can probably tell from the way I talked, and maybe my voice got up or I would get more animated, it's really a part of me. It's
You could tell.
it's inseparable from me, And I have a friend who was a medic. So when guys would get shot and you would hear medic up, this guy ran to the guy who just got shot. And that's how a lot of medics got killed, going to the guy who they're going to help. And that was his job. And we both say to each other, it's just like it was yesterday. And he was there 66, 67. I was there a couple of years later. But he goes, just like yesterday. I said, yeah, it's just like yesterday. It was funny. Vietnam comes out in crazy stories. When I was in college, we had what was called a Pershing rifle team. These were guys who did all the fancy twirling and throwing of rifles and all that stuff. Well, I didn't have any interest in doing that. But there would be a drill team, a real slick drill team. And sometimes we would hold a competition at our college for all the drill teams. But they all had to be chaperoned. And I was a chaperone for, as it turned out, one of the women's teams that came in, lucky me. But anyways, not most of the time, all the time, I did not wear and that was only for the juniors and seniors who were chaperoned, not the freshmen and sophomores who had to be in ROTC. The juniors and seniors were strictly the volunteer guys. So we wore the Army officer uniform. So all the people knew if they saw the black stripe down the pants and the black stripe on the sleeves, they knew you were in the ROTC program for real. And so, anyways, I had responsibility for the team that was coming in much earlier. So I had to wear my uniform. I never wore my uniform to class because I didn't want the hassle. I didn't want the hassle. And we got hassled. We got hassled. So, but I had to wear it. So I walk into my, it was philosophy class. And I sit down, and it would be, from the teacher's view looking out, would be on the left-hand side. The people who were near me, you know what they did? They got up and moved all the way to the other side of the room. And I'm sitting there now by myself. Being the person that I am, I said, I came to that class every time, even when I didn't have to, in uniform, and sat alone on the left-hand side. But here's the bigger question. Nobody came up to me and said, Jim,
May I
or
have your attention, please? The library is closing in 15 minutes. If you have any items you'd like to check out, please bring them to the circulation desk.
nobody would come up to me and saying, why did you join? Why did you want to go in to, why did you become a volunteer for this? You know, nobody questioned me. They just ignored me. You know, like I was, you know, I don't know, a disease or something. But nobody would question me. And I would be willing to talk to anybody and say, okay, here's the reason why. Simple. I believe in my country. I serve my country. The men in my family all volunteered and served their country. And I would have told them that, as I told you now. The reason hasn't changed. The reason is the reason. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks.